Okay, thanks God it's Friday. We're about to start we're just about to continue our discussion in our subject or in our topic, the world Englishes and the varieties of English. Time check, it's 2:06 in the afternoon. Okay, so good afternoon again. Good afternoon everyone, Block A and Block B. So, ayan. Since last meeting hindi naka-join or hindi naka-join sa live discussion and nanonood na lang silang mga block A, ngayon naman block B naman ang manonood. Okay? And the block A will have a live interaction via YouTube. Ayan, via YouTube using our integrating YouTube dito sa ating stream yard. So I hope everyone's great, everyone's okay, and without further ado, let's start our discussion. And last time we've discussed about world Englishes and the varieties of English na sinabi natin na when we say world English and world Englishes, they are two different terms. When we say world English, these are the lingua franca, okay? The use of English language in the whole wide world. Not just in America, in UK, in the Philippines, but in the whole uh, countries in the world. That's our lingua franca. And because we all know that English is our universal language. And when we say world Englishes, okay, world Englishes, okay, when we say world Englishes, these are countries that uses English. So, or um, world Englishes, these are refers to different countries. Okay, we're in English and English based ang kanilang language. Okay, so we have different regions in the world wherein English serves as their either their foreign language, their native language, or their secondary language. So there you have it. So here we've discussed the cockroach theory, circle theory, where under cockroach circle theory, we have the expanding circle, the outer circle, and the inner circle. So when we see the inner circle, okay, what is inside the inner circle? These are the countries that um, use English as their native language. They use English as their native language. Okay. So they use English as their native language. Okay, just like the UK, the USA, and the Australia. Ayan. As you can see on our graph or in our on the screen, we have here the three different uh circles according to Kakrus. That is the first, the inner circle. They use English, as I said, English as their native language. Okay, just like the USA, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. So those countries, they use English as their native language. Okay, ever since. And we have here the outer circle, wherein Philippines is under the outer circle. Wherein when we say the outer circle, that is English as their second language. And as I told you last during our topics, di ba, na our lingua franca is Filipino and our second language is English. And our the expanding circle, we have they use English as the in expanding circle. we're in under the expanding circle. We have China, Egypt, Israel, Japan, Korea, Nepal, Saudi Arabia, Taiwan, Russia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Caribbean, and Caribbean islands, and more. So they use English as their foreign language. We're in when we see EFL or this expanding circle. Um, English is not their native or even their secondary because we all know China or we have the Chinese people. They have different languages. We have the Mandarin and other language in China. So they don't often use English, but they use English in terms of communication for some businesses, for some investors that they come in their country. So not English is not part of their culture or not part of their history, but English plays a vital role in communication with the other people in their country, just like in other all the countries inside the expanding circle. Unlike the outer circle in the Philippines, okay, for example, the Philippines, we learn we learn all about English. We learn the English language. That's why English became our second language. And the inner circle, ayan, we have the UK or the United Kingdom, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, Malta, Anglophone Canada, and the South Africa. Ayan. For outer, we have the India, Nigeria, the Philippines, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Malaysia, Tanzania, Kenya, and non-Anglophone South Africa and Canada, and etc. And for the expanding circle, we have the China, the Russia, Japan, and most of Europe, Korea, Egypt, Indonesia. That's why if you, for example, for in South Korea, diba, although some Koreans can speak English, but they are not too fluent because they are fluent in speaking their native language, which is the Hangul. Okay, the Hangul. So doon sila talaga fluent. Unlike in Philippines, some Filipinos either fluent in speaking Tagalog or Filipino and in English because they learn. Malabo. Okay, don't worry. I will send to you the PowerPoint presentation na lang. Okay, so yun. So here in the Philippines, we are learning or we are learning all about English language. That's why some of the Filipinos are very fluent in English. And yeah, unlike in other expanded under the expanded circle, na they know how to speak English but they are not fluent because namulat sila sa kanilang native language and English is not part of their culture or in their tradition or in their history, pero ginagamit lang ang English as part of their communication or of some people, for some people. Okay, ayan. So we have here, ayan, the English proficiency index in the year 2018 in the Asia Pacific ranking, and number 2 as English proficient ang Philippines. Ayan, language, dialect, and variety. We've discussed this last meeting. The term language represent an idealization. Ayan, individuals not speak a language but they speak variety of language or a dialect. Yes, we cannot some of us can speak the language, but some of us have different language or dialect. Just like in the, here in the Philippines, right? Just like the what I gave you as an assignment before. So we have, and according to DepEd, there are 17 or 19. 17, I think. No, it's 17 or 19. Basta ganon. Okay, so mga dialects. Ayan. So accent. So we all know for some other countries, they have this accent. Diba, na ginagamit. For example, in Sir, sabi ko, yes, I will send to you the PowerPoint presentation right after this discussion. Don't worry. Okay? So here in accent, so napapansin natin there are some countries, there are some ang tawag dito. Sige, wait lang, tamagkon tayo. Sige, sige. Para try lang kung okay yung isa. Okay, so there are some countries in terms of accent that they have this accent. Diba? For example, Ano ba yung mga may accent? The British accent, 'di ba? Alam mong they are from UK because of their accent. And diyan nakikita rin. Okay, sa mga accents. Okay, saan naman British? Ayan. Okay. Oh yeah. So the president of the US in the last 2 decades have all had different accents, but they will be rightly be considered speakers standard. Yan, we have the standard American English, yung normal English, we have the standard American English. So for some BBC anchor news, we all know BBC is Britain something like news a news channel in from Britain, from UK, the BBC news anchors. Okay, they have also this identifiable accent wherein nalaman natin kung they are Irish or Scottish. Yan, because of their accent. Diba? Sure you can speak. Yan. So for example, yung mga, you all know naman, di ba? Sa rhyme, something like that. Okay, so why teach world Englishes? Okay. It is obvious that world Englishes provide a challenging opportunity to relate the three academic areas with the language, literature, and methodology. The approach of world Englishes has to be cross-cultural and cross-linguistic. The sources involve the diverse cultures, languages, and literatures. In contact with English, one has to have interdisciplinary focusing on the linguistic phase of the world Englishes. So aside from, for example, like just like in mathematics, we learn mathematics for the 3 R's. Why do we need to learn? Because we need to learn the 3 R's here: the reading, writing, arithmetic. So just like in English, also, why do we need to teach the world Englishes for some areas where in language? Okay, if you are good in speaking, so you are fluent in speaking the English language. And if you are fluent in speaking language, you have also the knowledge to create a masterpieces or some literary artworks, and that's under the literature and methodology, the proper use of grammar of Englishes, and some technicalities in using English as a language. Okay, the empirical studies of the positive effects of bilingual education. We are bilingual because we can speak Tagalog or Filipino. We can speak also English. So we are bilingual education. Why it's important, or what's the empirical or the positive effect of be having a bilingual education? Students who speaks their mother tongue fluently do better in English than students who studies only English and forced to leave their heritage language. And students who read in dialect or first language first and then under standard had higher scores in reading speed and comprehension of the standard English. I think I discussed this already. So pinapahapyawan lang natin, no? Ayan. Teachers have student be aware, okay, the concept of monolithic English. And we believe that the insight of theoretical and pedagogical significance for both describing and teaching varieties of English and their literature to understand the pluralism of English. It is therefore vital to see its spread, uses, and users in social linguistic contexts. Okay, issues. What are the issues? Challenges of English language in teaching or English language teaching from a world English's perspective are many. Brown's paper in the symposium explores the basic questions of whether to teach or not to teach world English. According to Nelson in 2016, he addresses concerns raised with regard to intelligibility in teaching English composition to mixed background students. So Wake in 1995 brings out the importance of cross-cultural leader response in assigning comprehensibility and interpretability to texts. She concludes if readers from different cultures create vivid, dynamic, but different experiences from the same text and reach very different interpretations of the meaning of the text, our approach to teacher training to in literature should be guided by the reality. So that's it. Ayan, range and depth. We already discussed this one, the range and depth. Okay, so I think ayan, like na tayo sa may ano, speech community and speech fellowship. When we say speech community, it refers to a wide-ranging association of varieties which would be considered to be different from one another in particulars, but which are submissible as sub-varieties under a broad label. For example, American, British, Australian, and New Zealand English are different from each other and are being codified as distinct varieties, but all of these speech fellowship are members of the same English speaking speech community. So, yung given example natin dyan is they are part of the English community. Pero magkakaiba sila in terms of accent. 'Di ba? Meron tayong tinatawag kasi na the standard American English. We have the British accent English. We have, iba rin yung pananalita ng yung way of pagsasalita ng isang Australian English. I think Australian parang si Ann Curtis. He is Australian, taga-Australia ata si Ann, right? Yeah. And sa British, si Zia yung bata. Yan yung si Zia. Ayan. So, nalalaman, or si Pressman. Yan, meron siyang dugong Briton. Ayan. Father ni Yasi is a British. So, nakikita or na-recognize natin yung the way sila magsalita ng English is different from each other. Although they are part of same community, English community, pero magkakaiba sila ng accent. So that's the speak, ayan. Pero pare-parehas lang din naman ng English yon. So New Zealand, iba rin yung English. New Zealand English are different then from them. There is an American English speech community with speech fellowships representing regional speakers from the Northeast or Maine, the Southwest or the New Mexico, the Northwest or the Oregon or Southeast or the South Carolina. The speakers from these regions exhibit noticeably distinct dialectal features of pronunciation, lexicon, and so on. Despite their differences, of them should be labeled members of the U.S. speech community. So from the Northeast, Southwest, and Northwest, mayroon din silang kanya-kanyang pronunciation or proper pronunciation ng some English words. Okay? Pero hindi sila main speech community. Ang tawag sa kanila is speech fellowship because they are came from one country, America. So, unlike dyan sa speech community kasi, magkakaibang bansa yan. Dito sa next bullet, they are part of the speech fellowship lang because they are from one country, tas magkakaiba. Okay, although they are America or the US is an English community, so magkakaiba sila ng the way they pronounce a word or yung accent nila. Sa Maine, iba yung the way sila magsalita in English, in New Mexico, and even in Oregon, and syempre sa South Carolina. Ayan. A group of people who share similar ideas, uses, and norms of a language. So although same yung ideas, same yung paggamit, same yung norms, yun nga lang, magkaiba lang sila the way they pronounce a word or as a word or even a sentence or a phrase. Looking at varieties of English in terms of speech communities and fellowship, Cat Cruz says, bring us closer to the real world of English users, their underlying distinct differences, and also their shared characteristic. Yeah, as you can see in the picture. Are you the new English teacher? Yes, I are. Yes, I are. What must be? Yes, I am. So I'm like, doesn't anyone speak proper English anymore? Huh? Ano daw? Ayan. So in speaking English, okay, according to Kakarus, speaking English, it brings closer. It brings us closer. Although we have different underlying differences. We have differences, but it makes us closer from one another, di ba? Kaya napapansin mo yung magkakaibang kahit di sila magkakakilala in terms of speaking English, okay, they can communicate with each other and then nagkakaroon na ng formation, ng friendship, something like that because nagkakaintindihan sila. And then they can share their characteristic. Ayan. So that's it. Monolingual attitudes and bilinguals creativity. Bilinguals creativity is perhaps most readily thought of as creative writing, whether of prose in stories or novels, poetry or plays for the literature. It is certainly the case that following the first public attempt at such creativity in the early 19th century, outer circle writers have made names for themselves across the English using world. Yan, so the bilinguals. Because 'di ba sabi natin bilinguals, parang tayo. Okay, Philippines is under this one because bilingual. We are fluent in speaking English and Filipino. So, syempre bakit natin naging second language ang English kasi pinag-aralan natin. We learn the language, the English language. And dito pa lang kasi napag-aralan natin, alam na natin yung terminologies, alam natin yung mga ang tawag dito, yung the methodology of using the English. Siyempre, kapag napag-aaralan natin, nakakagawa tayo ng mga literature, 'di ba? At there are some countries, there are some countries that they use English as their second language. And some people in that in that countries under ng outer circle ni Cruz is nakilala dahil sa mga masterpiece nila. Sino-sino ba? Di ko kaya yung mga ibang literature eh. From the other countries, di ba, nakilala. For example, si Ofelia Di Malanta. Yun lang kilala ko. He is a Filipina na isa siyang a love sonnet ata from Philippines. I don't know if I'm not mistaken. Kaya baka basta si Ofelia Di Malanta, isa siyang gumagawa ng mga masterpieces. So isa siyang Filipino pero nakilala yung gawa niya sa ibang bansa. Okay? Because he know he knew how to write or he make masterpieces in English language because napag-aralan niya yung English. That's why kaya niya. Okay? Kaya niya. Okay, so yung gawa ni ang tawag dito, ano pa ba yung mga alam? Si lumalabas to sa let eh. Si Buenvenido Santos, 'di ba? Literature 'yan. Isa sa mga writer from Philippines, 'di ba? Si Buenvenido Santos na ang theme niya is basta I don't know the content of Bienvenido Santos pero isa siyang Filipino. Isa rin siyang writer. O 'di ba? Is a poet ata. Ayan. So kasi pinag-aaralan natin yung language eh. So if you learn the language, you learn also the methodology of the language. Therefore, you can able to create masterpieces. You can create either either a prose or stories, some short stories, something like that, or a novel. Okay? Novel, just like the pwede siguro yung kay Dr. Zarizal. Ayan, Denoli and the Elfily. Ayan. At nakilala rin sa buong mundo about the poetry or plays for the theater. So mga theater arts, di ba, nakikilala. And aside from the here is for example the Phantom of Opera, yung Miss Saigon, Saigon ba? I think is that something like that. And so nakikilala kasi pinag-aaralan ng mga lalo na sa mga bilingual countries yung English language pinag-aaralan kasi. Kaya namamaster nila or yung mastery ng paggamit doon ay nagagawa nila into artwork or masterpiece. Journalists. Journalists in many countries play their trade in English. There are over 3,600 English medium newspapers in India. O, di ba? So, ang mga journalists natin, they play also a vital role in using English. Okay, imagine India, they have 3,600 newspapers. In Pakistan, they are 21. English sometimes takes new functions as of the often cited matrimonial advertisement in South Asian periodicals, and in every case exhibit the characteristic that define a particular religion or national variety. English also plays a significant role in broadcast media in many contexts. As K. Shridkar observes, although a radio news bulletins and the special topic programming in India are offered in many minority languages, the major emphasis in English and Hindi are pan-Indian program. So aside from newspapers, okay, in television, there are some there are some not English country, okay, just like Philippines, na ginagamit ang English in terms of the news. Okay, in the world of news. Okay. And in journalism, 'di ba? For example, in the ABS-CBN, one channel sa ABS-CBN yung ano, ANC. 'Di ba in ANC, it's pure English ata doon, 'di ba? Pure English yung content ng ANC ng ABS-CBN, and also in one channel ng Signal TV and puro English, or the CNN, 'di ba? 'Yun. ah Galing sila sa isang bansa na hindi English country. Pero there are some media or medium of advertising, ayan, na ginagamit ang English. Marami rin tayong mga newspaper na plain English yung content. Ayan. Manila Times, pero ata Manila, I don't know if the content of the Manila Bulletin or Manila Times is pure English. At least the majority is English talaga. Ayan. So ginagamit talaga natin English language is widely used, not only in some American or English countries, but even in even countries na the English serves as a second language. Ayan, hello Asia. May example natin. The Birds of Japan, ANN, Asian News Network. Ayan. The Phnom Penh Post. Phnom Penh is the capital of Cambodia. Am I right? I don't know. I don't know if I'm right. Just comment down if I'm right. I'm correct with Phnom Penh, Cambodia, or not. Okay. Language teachers can use such examples to illustrate bilingual writers' creativity in English, including paradigm examples of stylistic experimentation, mixing of codes, and acculturation of English in various other cultural settings. Interpretations of such literary work that is based on the old canons as reference points and in old paradigms as analytical devices cannot account the great cultural and social diversities that readers will encounter in this literature. And really, the English language is the accretion and growth of every dialect, race, and race of time, and in both the free and compacted composition for all. So English, the language teachers, some of the language teachers, ayan, they can illustrate bilingual writers' creativity. So nailalabas lang yung creativity nila in using English and using also their native language, their styles, something like that. Power and ideology. English has created culture for itself wherever it has assumed importance in a business, education, and so on, across the countries of the outer and expanding circles. As the medium of expression of various sorts of overt power, for example, the power of the law or of educational gatekeepers, language may become identified with power and take on a power of its own. This is exactly what has happened in English with English in its many geographical and national contexts. Like any sort of power, linguistic power may be positive or negative, beneficial or exploitative. One group of faction within an outer circle country may view English as an exponent and tool of nationality identity, whereas an opposing view may hold the English is a colonial remand and as such has no place in the national culture. The power of English globally shows in many ways, including its very spread and its giving access to modernity in terms of technology and many forms of knowledge, as well as certain connoted liberalism and progressivism or progressiveness. Yeah, it's English here said that it's very important, or yeah, it's very important in business, in education. Yes, di ba? If you see right now, some of the business or investors are from the other country, a foreign nationals or a foreign persons. So they must prefer to invest in a country wherein they understand them, wherein they also speak or they can also communicate in English. Also in education, right? That's why in education, uh our teachers until now reprimanded us to use English in if our subject needs an English medium of communication, we need to speak okay, we need to speak English, 'di ba? Pero pag Filipino, siyempre magtatagalog or magfi-Filipino yung medium of instruction natin. Pero pag English, kailangan natin magsalita ng English. And aside from that, our teachers also teach us to speak English because hindi lang natin nagagamit 'yon for the education, but also for future endeavor, 'di ba? For example, we will be having our work, 'di ba, outside the country or even in BPO as inside the country, pero it requires a fluency in speaking English. So alam na kaya nating sabayan sa mga sa mga foreign or sa mga English nationals, something like that. Okay, so that's the positive way. That's the positive part of having English. Pero on the negative side or the other part, okay, nawawala 'yon because some they view English and tool of national identity, and the opposing view holds as colonial remnant. Okay, parang on the other side naman, aside from okay, positive, maganda, nakakatulong 'yan sa business, sa education. Pero ang negative side is that nako-colonize tayo ng mga English. Parang mas parang mas prefer natin magsalita ng English, parang nawawala na yung mga pagiging Filipino natin. Yung the way tayo magsalita dapat Filipino because we are proud to be a Filipino, pero parang nawawala na. Kasi nakakain tayo ng sistema ng pagsasalita ng English. 'Di ba? Parang 'yun yung negative side na okay, sige nawawala na yung pagiging Pinoy mo, the way you speak Filipino because you were eaten by the colonial, okay, colonial mentality ba tawag doon? 'Yan ng English. 'Di ba? Yung parang pagiging K-pop fan, 'di ba? Parang nakakain na yung sistema mo ng K-pop na 'yan, ng K-drama na 'yan. Because pinag-aaralan mo siyempre 'di ba sa mga K-pop hindi naman basta-basta nagiging, idol mo yung isang ano, isang band or isang K-pop group, 'di ba? Pinag-aaralan mo yung grupo nila, where they started, ano yung mga sino-sino sila, 'di ba? Pinag-aaralan natin yang mga 'yan para makasunod tayo sa mga for example, sa mga armies ng BTS, 'di ba? Hindi naman puwede, okay, nakarinig lang ako ng kanta ng BTS na Permission to Dance, army na ako. No. 'Di ba? So pinag-aaralan nila yung yung about the BTS, all about the BTS. Ganyan din po dito sa English language. Pinag-aaralan yung English language para magamit in different aspect in education, in businesses and so on. Pero the negative side of that is naiisip natin na parang nagiging nako-colonize na tayo, nagkakaroon ng colonization. Okay, nawawala na yung pagiging Pinoy natin because of using English in day-to-day basis or in everyday living natin, 'di ba? Parang yung mga bata ngayon, 'di ba, tinuturuan na sila ng mga English, ayan. So yun yung iniisip lang naman na there is no place in the national culture kasi nga nawawala na yung national culture mo. Kasi nga kinakain ng sistema ng English, 'di ba? Something like that. So that's the negative side of learning English. Okay, but it depends, 'di ba? It depends. Saan tayo? Bakit nagkaiba? Ito pala yung kanina, nasobrahan, ayan. Cacruz said that the study of linguistic power is not exactly as the same type as the study of the use of power by the state. the legal system or religious commands and so on. Linguistic power has to be understood essentially through symbols and manipulation of the symbols. It involves the addition of a language or a language variety to the already available codes of society or the elevation of the variety of the detriment of another. Okay, so studying linguistic, it's not the same as all about the power of a state. Magkaiba 'yon. 'Yun yung parang nagiging iba yung ano kasi thinking nila pag pinag-aaralan yung power of linguistic. Parang you are learning also the power of the state, the legal system. No, but it's not. Okay, but the religious command, no. Magkakaibang sa ngayon. Okay, all about the state, the power by the state, iba yon sa legal system. And even sa religion commands, magkakaiba yon. Okay? The linguistic power has to be understood essentially through symbols and manipulation of the symbol, how they manipulate those symbols. It involves the addition of the language or language variety to the already available codes of a society or the elevation of a variety to the detriment of another. English, no longer an English language, now grows from many roots. So nagkakaiba-iba na. Hindi na siya language lang. English, our common language, binds our diverse people. Ayan, di ba? Kasi ba sabi nga natin, uh, through English, we became closer to one another. Di ba? Kasi nga, through communication. And sabi nga natin during our first meeting, first ever topic, that communication is very important. 'Di ba? In society. Ayan. In earlier days, English was something that belonged to us and was to be made available to them. The notion gave the inner circle countries a great deal or real and imagined power over the users and use of English. However, many non-native users of English employ its common language or communicative with other non-natives, while the interaction context in which non-native and native speakers use English with each other and fast shrinking. This is true to every level, including that of acquisition, which may be hardest notion to relinquish. Ayan. For both English and English language learners and native language speakers, structured oral language practice can be useful way to foster conceptual understanding while simultaneously building language skills and confidence. Ayan. So English belonged to us daw according to them. Ayan. And made available to them. So from us to them. Ayan. Para hindi kasi nga syempre 'di ba sabi natin yung English ngayon is um may iba't ibang sangay na, may iba't ibang roots na, 'di ba? May English na ng for example, in Britain, in UK, 'di ba? They have their own accent, 'di ba? And also the standard English. So nag-uugat-ugat na yung mga accent ng paggamit ng English, pero English is the same as English. The English yesterday is the same as English today and tomorrow, something like that. Pero nagkakaugat-ugat na lang 'yan because of the accents, 'di ba? Yung kanina yung Maine, the Oregon, the South Carolina, and yung isa. Ayan, 'di ba? Mga gano'n. Teaching English across the world. Monolingual English teachers with little or if any cross-cultural experience may have to stop and think about the situation in which English is acquired across the world. It is taught to non-native speakers by non-native speakers, neither teachers nor students, every having any contact with a native user. Ayan. So, monolingual, iisa lang talaga. Iisa, mono means one. In terms of identity, people's language affiliations are a significant part of themselves and of their images of themselves. Crystal in 1987 notes that language show we belong, providing the most natural badge or symbols of public and private identity. And in more specific terms, language can become a source of pleasure, pride, anxiety, offense, anger, and even violence. There is no prior reason to think that that the development of one variety in any stranger than the other. Most learners of English in outer circle and expanding circle contexts never have any serious contact with an inner circle speakers, and thus anyone who has ever tried it can testify it is not possible in any complete and active sense to learn a language from a book. So, hindi lang sa libro na pag-aaralan ang language. Hindi lang nasa textbook. All the informations about the language is written in the textbook. Because sabi nga nila, experience is the best teacher. So, as we communicate with other people, we gain knowledge. Ayan, we gain knowledge from them. Ayan. Communicative competence. Ay, nag-next ba? Communicative competence is the ability to use communities' language in appropriate ways to achieve goals and to operate in the society in unintended manner. Notions of communicative competence are analogous to, for example, knowing and acting in accordance with the social-cultural knowledge that if an Indian person hands you something, you should not accept it in your left hand, or that is unthinkable to go into a Japanese home with your shoes on. Similarly, there are conventions about who speak when, with whom, and how. It is reasonable to assume that what is polite or de rigueur, etc., in one community will hold for another. A person's being born in a native language, a native English speaking country, does not make for a more competent communications in other contexts any other context. So through in this communicative competence, we have the ability to in communities language in appropriate ways to achieve goals to achieve, sabi dito. Okay, we have because okay, dapat through communication alam din natin yung mga dapat or the rules. Okay, aside from speaking English also. For example, yun nga, yung isang example natin is yung isang Indian daw. Okay? Ayan, Indian person. Because here in communicative competence, we have this socio-cultural knowledge about the culture kung nasaan tayo. 'Di ba? Hindi yung sila yung mag-a-adjust for us. Hindi for example, yung India, hindi ang India ang mag-a-adjust sa atin. Tayo mag-a-adjust sa kanya. So dapat meron tayong knowledge about their socio-cultural. So, their culture. Okay, for example, if an Indian person hands you something, may binigay sa'yo, okay, you should not accept it on your left hand. So, dapat right hand lang siguro. Kasi syempre, they have this paniniwala, di ba, belief, something like that. So, kung may binigay sa'yo, dapat not your left hand ang magre-receive ng kung ano man yung binigay. At the same time, um, in Japan, 'di ba? It's not good na if you enter a Japanese home or house to enter even your with your shoes, 'di ba? Kaya ngayon napapanood natin is iniiwan yung mga slippers nila sa labas. So hindi siya appropriate in their country. Although that is applicable in your country, but in their country, we need to respect them, and that's why we must have a socio-cultural knowledge about their culture pag pumupunta tayo from different places to another. Siyempre, for them to respect their belief, something like that. Ayan, 'di ba? To polite, that's with politeness. Ayan. Intelligibility. Smith in 1988 proposes the idea that any text is received by a reader or hearer on three levels: intelligibility, comprehensibility, and interpretability. Each level is more comprehensive than preceding one and may comprise its information, although it does not necessarily rely upon it. Intelligibility consists of word level recognition. If you recognize that you are hearing or reading English, then the language is intelligible to you. So about you recognizing what you are reading, yung narinig natin, 'di ba? Pag narinig mo or nabasa mo in isang English, then you are intelligible. Ayan. How you recognize. Nare-recognize mo 'yon through hearing or through reading. That is intelligibility. Interpretability refers to the apprehension of intent, purpose, or meaning behind the utterance. It is the capacity to take G. It's hot in here as equivalent as far as appropriate response is concerned. The direct or of the direct request, please open the window. Ayan. So, di ba may mga slang or may mga terminologies, English terminologies ang hirap na para expression nila. So intelligibility, since you are now aware of English language, parang i-decode yung meaning nun. Okay? Alam mong i-interpret yung ibig sabihin nun. 'Di ba? Kasi nga same lang din naman, same thought pero nagkaiba lang yung the way they pronounce. So that's intelligibility na tinatawag natin. The ability to interpret or apprehend the what they are talking about, something like that. About comprehensibility. Comprehensibility is the degree that a recipient finds a text meaningful. It has a comprehensibility, comprehend, okay, thinking. If someone says, please open the door, and if the words are intelligible to you and you can assign referential meaning to them, then that bit of text is comprehensible to you. Further, if you interpret the utterance "please open the door" as a request for a particular activity which you may carry out, ignore, object to, or otherwise react in a particular activity, react to in ways in their turn elicit another round of interpretation and response from the other participants in the situation, it is comprehensible to you. So, ayun. So, how you comprehend yung sinasabi ng speaker or nung nakakasalamuha mo. Please open the door. Kapag na-gets mo yung ibig sabihin nun, syempre, you have this intelligible na ang tawag dito, na attitude. Ayan. At tas kapag nalaman mo, na-gets mo yung ibig niyang sabihin, so, you have this comprehensibility attitude din. Ganun po yun. Nativization and Englishization. Nativization refers to the adaptation of English in particular socio-cultural settings and leads to qualifying descriptors such as US English, Indian English, Singaporean English, and so on. So that is nativization, nativization. Ayan. Englishization refers to the manifest influence of English on other language in a given repertoire. Levels of languages from pronunciation through literary genres may be affected in discernible ways. So, yung nativization, all about the different qualifying descriptors ng English. Kasi meron tayong, di ba, meron tayong US English, Indian English, Singaporean English, and so on. So from the other countries na hindi siya totally English language. Or yeah, parang bilingual aspect. Ayan. Sa Englishization naman, so the influence na ng English talaga in other language. How English influences the other language. Something like that. English is weird. It can be understood through and through and through and through and through. And syempre naman. Scientific thought and method. Pragmatic examination of the facts and issues of the world Englishes leads one, teacher and student alike, to come to grips with observed phenomena and inferred hypotheses as opposed to defending closely held beliefs blindly. One can defend to the death the notion of one model standard, or two perhaps, three, for all would be English users, but we will not stop the wide world from using English for conversing bargaining, studying, and trading. So English language, nobody's special property. It is the property of the imagination. It is the property of the language itself. Hopefully matapos na natin to bago mag-time. Meron pang hanggang 42 eh. Kapag hindi natin matapos, I will just send na lang this PowerPoint and then pag-aralan nyo lang para by next meeting, mag-start na tayo sa new topic, sa Philippine Englishes. Okay. English as a medium of multiculturalism. Multiculturalism. Okay. One of the important vehicles of implementing and experiencing multiculturalism is English. Yes naman. It is because syempre, English is our universal language. In its many multicultural incarnations, it is the vehicle of cross-cultural awareness that can be used not only to teach but to learn in bio in by directional ways, multicultural literatures, customs, and acceptance. If teacher trainees are not exposed to multicultural ideas and examples, they go out into the world in which in very much the same state of mind as a certain zealous sort of religious missionary who seeks to show the lost the error of their ways without knowing anything about their ways. So English language serve as our medium. It plays a vital role in being a multiculturalism, being multicultural as a multicultural country ang English because syempre English sabi ko nga it's our universal language. Leading students or leading teachers to lead the students to discover language differences as a way of laying a foundation for examining the differences and their importance should not be difficult. The major American and British newspapers are available at school and public libraries. News magazines, popular magazines, and fictions are also ready sources of language data. Yes, di ba? Marami tayong ganyan. Now we're in those novels or those resources or sources ginagamit natin in learning the language. An easy first exercise be might be to gather a list of unfamiliar lexical items. Differences exist among inner circle varieties. Their next assignments would be to extend the search into texts from the outer circle. So, syempre, di ba, if we read some books or some stories or yeah, but for example, the J.K. Rowling's famous Harry Potter. Diba there are some words there are some unfamiliar words that we don't know. So all we have to do is to search on the internet. What does that uh means, 'di ba? Anong ibig sabihin ng mga 'yon? The immediate benefit of such exercise would be the student would move beyond an abstract belief in the existence of world Englishes to hands-on, if limited, familiarity with them, and they would overcome a reluctance to approach another variety once they found that text in these other varieties were accessible to them. So, di ba kapag may mga words tayo hindi naiintindihan or there are some words that we don't know what does it mean, okay, because it's not familiar to us, first time lang natin napakinggan or nabasa, 'di ba hinahanap natin yung definition from the internet or we have using this context clues. So doon pa lang nakaka-learn tayo ng new words na pwedeng gamitin, 'di ba? Waterloo. For example, yung Waterloo, hindi ko din naman alam na ang Waterloo. Ang Waterloo pala ay other term ng parang hindi mahina ako doon, parang ganun, mahina doon. Okay, parang ngayon, English is one of my Waterloo subject. Ayun, 'di ba? Ano kaya 'yun, 'di ba? So nakaka-gain tayo ng new knowledge in finding some words that we don't know what does it mean or first time nating napapakinggan. International business and English for special purpose. Englishes for special purposes or ESP, including the aviation English or the airspeak and seaspeak have been extensively discussed and analyzed. Yes, that's why, di ba, in sa aviation or sa mga airline sa mga pang air mga aviations natin just like sa mga airlines. Yeah, airlines, 'di ba? English yung pronunciation ay yung yung medium of instruction nila, 'di ba? Kasi English as a language in aviation and even sa mga sa gumagamit ng SysPeak or sa mga ah, seaports natin, 'di ba? English din yung ginagamit kasi malaking tulong din in communication with the passengers, 'di ba? Welcome to Philippine Airlines, yung mga gano'n, 'di ba? Pag nakikinig mga gano'n, so English talaga. An increasing number of ESP practitioners live and work in English-speaking or medium countries preparing curricula for VESL or English for Occupational Purposes or EOP programs for new immigrant and refugee populations in classrooms emphasizing academic or business preparations. ESP also continues to be common to English as a foreign language context where an increasing number of individuals are eager to learn business or academic English in order to pursue their careers or studies in English or in a English medium context. One remarkable example of the explosion of ESP programs in EFL continues taken context has taken place in China, but ESP continues to be strong in the Middle East and Latin America. Ayan. So yan, the ESP. English for special purpose. Yung gamit pa ng English. Ayan. So, okay. So, kung may klase pa kayo, pwede na kayong mag-out. Pero pag wala, tapusin ko na lang tong video na to para mai-upload na rin sa YouTube. Don't worry, kapag hindi nyo napanood, you can rewatch this one on my YouTube channel, and then I will send to you the soft copy of the PowerPoint presentation right after discussion. Tapusin ko lang to. We are now in number 38 out of 42. So if you have class, if you don't have class, you can stay. But if you have class, so you can now, pwede na kayong mag-out. Okay? So English for Business and Economics or EBE and English for Professional Purposes programs are most popular ESP areas in EFL and in much of the ESL world as well. Business professionals and studies require instructions in negotiation, correspondence, proposal, and report writing, uses of technology, and in supervising bilingual and ESL or EFL workers, business students in academic programs need preparations for passing examinations such as the test of English as a foreign language or the TOEFL. Di ba? Meron ganyan. We have ESL. Ay, basta may mga ganyan TOEFL. If you want to become an English teacher sa other country, mayroong mga test na dapat mong tapusin. Dapat may mga test na kailangan mong ipasa. Isa na yun yung test of English as a foreign language, yung TOEFL or Graduate Management Admission Test or the GMAT or the International English Language Testing System, yun IELTS. Ayan, meron yan. If you want to teach English in other countries, dapat one of the requirement is to pass this examination. Aside from okay, aside from your syempre board exams. Okay. Expanding the lingua franca. As a traditional native speakers of other language use English as lingua franca. Ayan, ang English ay ating lingua franca or language or of wider communications. More research and pedagogies will focus on the English situation in which of the participants are native speakers of English, examining how ESP as a second or third or fourth language is researched, produced and taught by L2 speakers. So expanding ayan, lingua franca studies. Successful Successful English teachers do not need to be content experts. However, they do need to have a solid linguistic backgrounds, to be skilled at various approaches to needs assessment and target situations analysis. Be adept at working with a variety of stakeholders in a variety of cultures, and be open, observant, and flexible as their curriculum and instruction evolve. So, being a successful English teacher, you don't need to know everything. You need to know the content. You don't need to become a content expert. No, okay na yung ano, much better na aside from you have a solid meron kang knowledge about the linguistic, you have also skilled, okay, skilled from various approaches. So assessment, for example, um, alam mong assessment, ayan, and target situation analysis, working with a variety of stakeholders kasi in working, you can learn, you can gain knowledge, okay, and be open to the open na hindi yung parang open-minded ka, something like that, and be observant. Okay, be observant. Ayan. Okay, so we are now in summary. To summarize, we believe that the world Englishes provide paradigm examples of the relationship between linguistic and language teaching theory, methodology, and applications. The preceding sections have shown the anecdotal statements regarding the global spread of English are not as empirically sound or malfunctionally valid. The spread of English provides a language teachers with an abundance of data for relating second language issues to pedagogical concerns. This can be done in several ways through the study of a variation and pragmatics of variations, varieties and some culture, and varieties and creativity. This assumption reflects that at least three most powerful sets of pedagogical tools: curriculum, testing, and resource materials. For achieving positive goals, it is most important in teachers' training to create teacher awareness of the status and functions of teachers of Englishes in the world today and in the future. So those are the sum as the su- the summary of our topic, and I hope you learned something. Yan, so sobrang tayo sa oras. So I hope you learned something. Ayan. So that ends our topic for today. And I hope naintindihan. Sa mga hindi, you can watch this or watch this all over again if may mga na-miss kayo. Okay, so with that, thank you for joining. Goodbye, God bless, and keep safe. Don't worry, I will send to you the PowerPoint presentation. Ayan, later on. Okay, you may now leave. Goodbye.